We all know it. Walked it every day. But none of them were like these. The world's most dangerous ways to school. Climbing, freezing, paddling for hours, all for the chance of a better life. Risky, spectacular, and sometimes just simply beautiful. The most dangerous ways to school. Peru, Lake Titicaca, 3,800 meters above sea level, the world's greatest mountain lake. On this lake, 2 schools where children learn and fight for their dreams. But the way to school leads across infinite water, and even the smallest children have to cope on their own. Almost daily, up to 4 hours of paddling and trudging through reeds, always battling with nature, on one of the world's most dangerous ways to school. Five o'clock. The first rays of the sun break through the clouds above Lake Titicaca, Peru. A new day is dawning. A few miles away from the mainland, somewhat hidden between huge fields of totara reeds, about 50 families of the Uru clan, the native inhabitants of Lake Titicaca, live together in a village community of floating reed islands. On each lives one family. At the first break of dawn, the 9-year-old Mariela and her little sister Belinda get up. Still a bit drowsy, they put on their traditional school uniform all by themselves. Their parents are out fishing. The elder siblings work on the mainland. Especially important, hair care. Every morning, the sisters copiously comb their hair and then braid it. That's what the Indian tradition demands. Because hair signifies strength, beauty, and life in the Uru culture, it needs special attention. On the other side of the village, something stirs too. 4-year-old Harold is an early bird. After all, kindergarten is waiting. But the morning wash with cold lake water is not one of his favorite pastimes. The children's colorful hats are not only part of the traditional clothing, but also offer protection against the aggressive sun in this high mountain region. Far away from the village, a 3-hour-long boat ride from the mainland, 11-year-old Vidal and his family also get up at the break of dawn. They live on a tiny isolated island in the midst of the world's greatest mountain lake. But before Vidal can brace himself for his dangerous way to school, he must take care of his family's sustenance. Like every morning, he checks the fishing nets. Vidal has built his boat himself, which, like almost everything else on this lake, is made of reeds. The water is only 2 meters deep here. The 11-year-old pushes the boat forward with a long wooden stick. For centuries, this is how the Urus have been calmly navigating the lake. Especially in wintertime with its frosty temperatures, fishing is a tough job on a lake which lies 3,800 meters above sea level. By tradition, Vidal stands in for his father, who at this time of day is busy with other tasks. Due to the increasing water pollution over the past few years, the yield hasn't improved. Vidal is all the more delighted if he finds something in the net.
I like fishing a lot.
Para comer también.
Because then we could eat the fish. If something is left in the basket, my mother can trade it for something else on the mainland.
Con eso no lo comemos nosotros.
After work, it's time for the well-deserved refreshment. The cooking and eating is done outdoors. Vidal's mom prepares breakfast for the family of 8. She bakes traditional Uru bread. Their whole life takes place on a 30-square-meter island with 2 little reed huts. None of the children have a room of their own. Vidal braces himself with reed blossom tea. He will need a lot of strength today. Because Lake Titicaca, with a total area of almost 8,300 square kilometers, which he has to cross on his way to school, is the largest navigable lake in the world. At 6:30, Vidal sets off on his adventurous journey to the Uru State Primary School. 2 hours lie ahead of him, across the Great Lake, all by himself. Two hours to get there, and another 2 hours coming back in the afternoon. Since Vidal turned 8, he paddles to school on this long journey. It makes his mother Paulina nervous to see him vanish on the infinite lake.
I'm very concerned when he sets off. What happens if he keels over? I don't even want to think about it.
Most Uru children go together with a number of others in larger boats, so they can take turns. Vidal lives so far off that he has to go by himself. But he has a goal.
I really want to study. That's why I travel so far.
Slowly, Vidal pushes the boat forward. He has to ration his strength. The punting with a long wooden rod is the most efficient and at the same time least tiring method to make way. But still, it forces him to go to his limit. It's a long way, especially for an 11-year-old. A few kilometers away, in the Uru village, the 9-year-old Mariela and her little sister Belinda are still busy tying colorful woolen pompons to their braids. Only then are the girls ready to go. Mariela likes going to school because she too has a dream.
I want to study medicine.
That's why the 9-year-old takes on such a tough way to school. At 7 a.m., she and her sister Belinda row off. An hour across the Great Lake lies ahead of the girls before they reach the private primary school.
I'm afraid they might fall into the water. It has happened to Belinda. Luckily, Mariela was able to save her. I thank heaven for that.
But she is left with no choice than to let them go on their own. She and her husband have to work. Mariela's way stretches right through the village. which is traversed by many bigger and smaller waterways. 60 minutes of rowing, tiring for the 9-year-old, but also the daily routine. Her sister Belinda is lucky. Being younger, she gets to enjoy the boat ride. Mariella, being the older, had to take it on at an early age.
I didn't know how to row. My mother taught me when I was about 5 years old. In the beginning, it was difficult. But when I turned 6, it started to become easier.
The 11-year-old Vidal also learnt rowing at an early age. Most of the time, he is far out on the lake, completely by himself, on his traditional reed boat.
Me gusta más balsita porque corre más.
I like my boat
rápido.
because it is so easy to handle.
Después
To build it, we first dry the reeds.
construir la balsa. Después, pa que
Then we
flote,
wattle the
rescalar
boat by weaving the 2 broad middle parts with the smaller parts that are used for the edge,
nylon.
and tie them together with nylon cords.
Con eso. Si no se flota. Después,
To help the boat to float, we put empty plastic bottles in the middle part.
su
To build the boat, it takes me about 2 to 3 days.
remoramos. Más lento, 3 días, sí.
The 11-year-old is used to being on his own when he's underway. Only the men working in the reeds cross his way from time to time. Today, he took a route leading him past his father, Carlos, so they can say good morning to each other. Since the break of dawn, the 40-year-old harvests the totora reed. With a sort of scythe, he cuts the stems just above the root and drags them into piles. He wants to use the new harvest for the expansion of the island, only one of the many ways to use the reed on Lake Titicaca.
For us on the lake, totora means life. We build our boats, our houses, our islands with it. We even eat it. We use totora for everything in our lives.
With his harvest, Carlos returns to his family island. The fresh reed provides the basis for the continuance of the family-owned island. Once a week, Carlos must do some repair work on their floating home, because the islands are fragile structures. The Uru are the only inhabitants living on Lake Titicaca. After battles with other tribes, they built their floating islands of reed, and with these, they fled onto the lake. In case of danger, they could move on along with their island whenever they wanted to. The islands float even to this day. The reed of which they consist rots from underneath, and the rising foul gases keep the construction afloat. Today, the Urus are more or less settled and have made themselves at home on their bobbing islands. Still, almost everything is made of reeds. People live off the things the lake offers them. Fishing has always been the Uru's main source of income. Since they are a people of the water, they own no land to grow fruit or vegetables, and therefore have to trade a large part of their catch for other food at the lakeside. Vidal's father Carlos also lives off fishing and built the island from reeds as is the custom. Since it rots from underneath, Carlos has to pile up a fresh layer of totora again and again to prevent his family from getting wet. But it's a race against time. After 3 years, repair work doesn't suffice anymore, and Carlos builds a whole new island. Vidal's father observes the sky. The dark clouds above the mountains worry him. The weather quickly veers over the huge lake, and that signifies danger for his son.
If clouds like these appear, I always get a bit nervous. But the real problem is not the rain, it's the wind.
Because the wind causes waves. And for Vidal on his little boat, that doesn't mean ideal conditions. The change of weather normally happens around midday. These are the forebodings. A few miles away in the Uru village, 9-year-old Mariela and her sister Belinda are rowing towards school. It's windy here too, but the many islands provide cover, and so the water is calmer.
If it's very windy, it becomes exhausting. Sometimes the wind is so strong, it blows me away and I drift off.
Due to its size and location, Lake Titicaca is unpredictable. It lies on a high plateau between the Andes Mountains at a height of 3,821 meters. Allegedly, the cradle of the legendary Inca civilization is to be found in the lake. According to legend, the gods created the first Incas here. They rose from the bottom of the lake. For many, a magical place. Today, only the many ruins of temples testify to the existence of the ancient high civilization of South America. Mariela makes a stop on her way to school. After all, the lake offers the students a special delicacy. The so-called chulio is the Ulu children's favorite food and can be found in the white insides of the totora reed. Mariela and Belinda peel the reed and enjoy the fruit pulp. The children love chulio because it tastes slightly sweet. It contains many important minerals and also bleaches teeth. The reason why the Inca's offspring often have this sparkling white smile.
I like the chulio from a reed. It's so yummy because it's sweet. It also gives me strength so I can row.
Vidal too takes a detour into one of the reed fields on his way to school. He, however, rows really deep into the closely intertwined totora reed. He's looking for nesting water birds, which he wants to bait. Only those like Vidal, who are very familiar with the reed, find their way. Many have gone astray. It takes a lot of effort, even if one knows the place. Sometimes the 11-year-old gets stuck, even with his narrow boat. He tries to free himself by rocking the boat with his feet. Finally, Vidal spots a nest full of fresh eggs.
Buscando así.
When I go looking for nests, I just go into the reed by instinct and keep searching.
Ya puedo después subiendo.
But Vidal is not really interested in the eggs. His plan? He wants to catch the parents. They are the only source of meat for the Urus, and therefore especially precious. Only if Vidal catches something will his family have a meal other than fish for a change. The ducks are supposed to get caught in these nylon snares. Carefully, Vidal puts the eggs back into their nest. The parents will only return if the clutch is full. On his way back from school, Vidal will check his trap. Freshly invigorated, Mariela and Belinda continue their way to school. Since the Urus always help one another, a little stopover is also on the agenda today. The girls pick up 4-year-old Harold and row him across to his kindergarten. In the village community, the older children often collect younger ones and thus share the ride. Quite some responsibility for a 9-year-old. Especially since they are now on the busy main channel of the village, with plenty of traffic.
I'm worried when Harold goes with the girls. What happens if he falls in or an accident occurs? There's so much traffic in the morning. That's why I try and bring him as often as possible myself.
Harold doesn't know how to swim. Most children learn to swim in school. Mariela rows as careful as possible. A couple of times she almost collided with other boats. More and more Urus in the village own fast motorboats. The children with their wooden punts barely stand a chance.
I'm afraid of a collision because we would instantly sink.
Mariela has made it through the busy traffic and safely delivers Harold at his kindergarten island. The girls wait till the 4-year-old has safely reached the building. Per year, on an average, 3 little children drown in the village, falling off the island while playing. Then the girls move on. At all costs, they want to reach school, which lies at the far end of the village, long before the actual lessons start. Meanwhile, Vidal has been on his way for 1.5 hours now. His way to school leads him across the fields of reed, which in some places is traversed by fully fledged waterway networks.
I never get lost in the reed.
Adentro. Yo miro al sol y
I simply use the sun for my orientation.
tengo hambre. Rápido.
And so the 11-year-old continues to cut his way through the many canals in the reed, undeterred by more than 90 minutes of his tiring way. After a good hour, Mariela has nearly made it. She and her sisters safely arrived at the private primary school. Fellow students from all over arrive in dribs and drabs. This is the best moment of the whole day for Mariela, because here at school, she meets her girlfriends, can let go of her responsibility as an older sister, and simply be a child again. A whole hour before school starts, the girls meet because they've got something to do before the serious side of life begins. Every morning, before school, they practice swimming together. The fact that the water is only 12 degrees Celsius only bothers Mariela and her friends in the beginning. After half an hour, the 9-year-old has had enough of the cold water for the time being. Finally, Vidal has also almost made it. The state primary school is in sight. He has been on his way for a good 2 hours now and is tired, but also happy to finally be there and meet his friends. The children arrive from all sides. Some are delivered by their parents. Others have shared a reed boat standing up because they only had a short way to school. A quick spit bath in the lake, and then it's time to finally enter the schoolyard. The first steps in more than 2 hours for Vidal. And although his way to school is so tiring, he's glad he's able to be here.
Here, I could have fun and be with my friends.
Whether Reed Island or not, just like everywhere else, the schoolyard is the place where children can charge around. It offers much more space than the islands at home. At last, the children can run around. But even if most of them have already had their fair share of sportiness, the delight in foolishly charging around is unaffected by it. The teachers' pets among them already peer around for their teachers and rush to their welcome. Vidal's teacher, Señora Condori, also has a long way to school. She comes from the mainland, and it took her 1.5 hours to get there, with a motorboat, however. At 9 o'clock sharp, the 40 students start lessons with a morning assembly. Vidal and his fellow students sing the Peruvian national anthem. Slightly out of tune, but always fervently. off to the two classrooms. Two age groups are taught together in one classroom each, since there are only two teachers. Not the only handicap the state school has to deal with.
Los niños se trasladan de islas muy lejanas.
Many of my students come from faraway islands. For them, it is physically very tiring to row the boats, and often the children had little or no breakfast. So when they arrive, they're already very exhausted, which makes it harder for them to learn and to concentrate. That's why the level at this school is lower than the one in Puno, on the mainland, for example.
Nevertheless, the teachers try to bring their syllabus across. The timetable starts with math as first lesson. Even if boring for some, it's Vidal's favorite subject. He wants to become an engineer. It's geometry today. Senora Condori has to teach 3rd and 4th grade together and always makes sure they all understand. Even in math, the ever-present reed plays a role. The pieces of Totora are wonderfully suited to illustrate the polygons the teacher showed at the blackboard earlier on. A few miles away in the Uru village, the private primary school has also started at 9 o'clock sharp. Mariella's school is run by the religious community of Adventists. However, religious education plays a minor role. The teacher follows the ordinary national curriculum. Reading, writing, arithmetic, and geography are the main subjects. Right now, Mariella and her fellow students are struggling with Spanish syntax. Also in Vidal's school, it's time for Spanish lessons. As opposed to the population on the mainland, the Urus speak a distinct language of their own, the so-called Aymara. They have to learn Spanish from scratch.
For the children, it is very important to learn Spanish, because in the towns on the mainland like Puno and everywhere else, Spanish is spoken almost exclusively. The people speaking Aymara are often discriminated against, so I encourage the students to learn Spanish.
12 o'clock. Break. Time for lunch. There is nothing to be bought on the school island, so all the mothers give their children something to eat to take along. Since some have more than others, the children share their food, so everyone gets what he likes. Vidal loves fish and rice. The girls prefer grilled beans, even if they are a bit stony. Whoever is thirsty afterwards simply serves himself from the lake, drinking with their own special technique. The teacher, Senora Condori, always checks the sky around noon, because here on the plateau there is often a sudden change of weather around 12 o'clock.
Sí hay un peligro que corren es el relámpago y los truenos.
The biggest problems here are the thunderstorms and the wind. Especially in the afternoon, it's dangerous. Because just when our children head off for home, often we have a change of weather. If we see that the weather will worsen, we finish school early so the children can get home reasonably safe.
A buen tiempo, porque es bien peligroso ese el relámpago.
For the moment, the weather doesn't look too bad. But what it will be like when the children head back home, nobody knows. After half an hour, the break is over, and a Spanish test awaits them. Nothing escapes Senora Condori's stringent gaze, even if the children try to cheat a little. Spanish is not exactly Vidal's best class, and he is dragging behind a bit in the subject matter.
Es un alumno bien activo.
Vidal is a very active student. He takes part in everything, and being one of the older students, he even sometimes helps me teach the other students. But I worry about him, because at the moment, especially on Fridays, he often misses school. His parents want him to stay at home and help, because his older brothers have all left home already and have their own families. And so they often expect Vidal to lend a hand at home and help sustain the family. That's very difficult for him.
The tests are corrected immediately. As almost everywhere in the world, the girls are done first and are anxiously awaiting their results. Vidal and his desk neighbors are still struggling with the questions. For Vidal, the test is quite important. The last one, he flunked badly. This time, he at least got 14 out of 20 points. He can be proud of himself. At 2 p.m., school's over. After 5 hours of school, it's time to go back on the long and dangerous way home.
The way back is much harder because I am already tired, and often the wind is blowing in the afternoon.
All on his own again, Vidal rows towards his parents' isolated island. The weather seems to keep up. Mariela's school is over too. Depending on which direction they're heading to, the children share rides. Mariela and Belinda's island lies at the far end of the village. The two of them row home together. Vidal can't take the shortest route home. He wants to check the trap he set in the morning at the duck nests. Again, he navigates his little boat right into the Tortura reed. He has to concentrate in order to recover his snares in the midst of the infinite tangle of reed. But after a quarter of an hour right through the reed, he finds the nest with a dead duck inside.
It's important I catch something, because that's the only meat we have.
Vidal takes the remaining egg back home. He will hatch it at home. The sisters have picked up little Harold from kindergarten and bring him home on their way back. He may play the rest of the afternoon. Theoretically, Vidal only has half an hour left, but the wind has grown stronger, and he is unable to find protection in the canals. Like it or not, he has to cross the wide open space in order to get home. The 11-year-old struggles to keep balance.
I have to be careful. If I move too much, I could fall over.
Vidal is exhausted, but still has quite a long way to go. Because the village is close by, the water is calm where the girls are. Since 9-year-old Mariela has been rowing the whole time on the way there, it's now Belinda's turn. She is supposed to learn how to steer the boat by herself. Next year, Mariela will have finished primary school. The little one is already quite capable of the movement sequences, but she is careless and doesn't pay attention to the other boats. To Belinda, the whole thing seems like a game. She will have to practice a while before being allowed to row by herself. She's got half a year before she has to go on the water on her own, and Mariela is off to secondary school. It's extremely tiring to row against the wind and the waves, but Vidal must keep concentrating or else he will keel over. Water swashes into his reed boat. Again and again, he has to stop and bail it out. His arms burn, but it is already past 4 o'clock, and because the equator is so close, the sun goes down within half an hour. The student must not slow down. Finally, his home island comes to the fore. A moment that always liberates extra strength in Vidal.
As soon as I see our house, I know it's almost over. Just a bit more.
Shortly before sunset, Vidal reaches home after 2.5 hours, soaking wet. He was away for 10 hours. He doesn't arrive empty-handed. His catch means that his family can finally eat some meat after 10 days. But his mother, Paulina, takes only little interest in the duck. She is so pleased her son has made it across the huge lake unscathed.
I am always worried until he is back, and then I try and warm him up with a jacket and a warm soup.
Mariela and Belinda have also arrived safely at home in the village. Like good girls, they quickly do their homework. Mariela does math, and Belinda is drawing. Little Harold is put to bed by his mother. But also, he has to do some reading exercise before he goes to sleep, exhausted by a long day. Vidal and his family warm up by the fire in the last sunset light and are feeding the hatchlings. He knows why he endures his tough way to school.
Porque quiero estudiar, por eso.
I do this every day because otherwise I would not be able to study. I am lucky. My older brother couldn't go to secondary school. But my mother told me that I'll be allowed to study. And that just makes me happy.
Yo feliz me siento.
And so, again tomorrow, Vidal will row for 4 hours across the largest mountain lake in the world. For his dream of a better future, he will endure even the longest way to school. Five o'clock in the morning, shortly after sunrise in San Nicolas. On one of the banks of the Rio Escondido lies a small settlement in a jungle clearing. Here life is simple. There is neither running water nor electricity. Only 2 families live in San Nicolas. One of them is the González Flores family. With the first rays of sunlight, life begins in the small wooden shack. Beneath the mosquito net, something stirs.
Come on, it's time to get up.
A long, exhausting, and dangerous day lies ahead for the children. But the anticipation of school sends the 3 Flores sisters leaping happily out of their bed.
I'm so hungry.
But the girls cannot think of breakfast yet. The family is poor, as is 70% of Nicaragua's rural population. First, a quick sponge bath. As every morning, a lot of work awaits the children. Before they can eat anything themselves, they must feed the family's most valuable assets, the animals. And as generations before, their mother, Doña Julia, really needs her daughter's help. Julia Jr. is 7 years old. The baby, Julissa, called Yuli, is 5. Kenya, the big sister, is 9 years old. Before all 3 can go on their dangerous journey to school over the Rio Escondido, they must first do an hour and a half of household chores. Despite the work, they do not forget how to be children.
You have to take more water. Ah, that's so cold.
Their mother prepares breakfast. The children will need it. As usual, there is pozol, a mixture of water, corn, and sugar, and a piece of bread. Not much, considering the hardships that lie ahead.
It's very important that the girls learn to read so that they can have a better future. When they grow up, I want them to become doctors or teachers. They should be able to become anything they want to.
The three sisters are not the only children in the jungle who must do so much every day in the hopes of a better life. Their classmate, Graven Lopez, lives 1 kilometer further inland. His family is not quite as poor. Since the 11-year-old Graven doesn't have to work before school, he's only just gotten up. His mother, Doña Jamie, has already prepared his breakfast. Since the family lives too far from the river, his way to school takes him through the countryside. The greatest threat facing Graven on his journey slithers along the ground and in the trees.
I'm very afraid of the snakes on the way to school, but I know that I need to learn to read so that I can make something out of myself.
3 kilometers of jungle lie before him. Not a very long way, but his constant fear of snakes and other dangerous animals is with the boy at every turn.
Goodbye, Mom.
Bye. Take care.
Regardless of the risks, being allowed to go to school is a privilege in this part of Nicaragua. Very few children get the chance. Graven's classmates are almost ready to go. While their mother is still doing Ulysses' hair, the 2 older sisters crack open coconuts, food for the pigs. They use every free minute to work. At about 6:30, they get going. The girls don't know the time because the family has no clock.
Farewell.
Bye-bye.
An hour remains until the lessons officially begin for Yulissa, Julia, and Kenya. Time enough, as long as there are no delays. They must row almost 2 miles along the river to reach the school. But their craft's best days are long past. The old dugout canoe is falling apart, and water seeps through dozens of holes. In order to keep their canoe seaworthy, the girls must bail the water out of the dugout before every trip. This takes at least 15 minutes. It is almost always Kenya who performs this task. She is used to taking responsibility for her younger sisters. Meanwhile, their classmate Graven has completed the first part of his hike. In the cleared forest glades, he's making good progress. His next phase, the dense jungle, is already in sight. Suddenly, as so often before on his way to school, an unexpected obstacle. A herd of buffalo blocks the entrance to the jungle. Although the animals are not aggressive, if one gets too close, they may feel threatened and attack.
If I bother them, they might run me over.
Graven decides not to take the risk and goes around the herd. Only very rarely does he meet other people on his way. The east of the country is sparsely populated. Just 1/10 of the 5.7 million Nicaraguans live here on half of the country's landmass. After a quarter of an hour's detour, Graven reaches the edge of the jungle. From now on, he has to really concentrate. One false step can have serious consequences. Giant tropical ants, poison dart frogs, curly-haired tarantulas. The jungle is home to countless poisonous animals.
I've always been a bit afraid when going into the jungle.
And rightly so. The jungle's poisonous inhabitants are masters of camouflage. By the time one discovers them, it's often too late. Graven hurries to get through this part of the forest as swiftly as possible. On the riverbank, the sisters' dugout is finally ready to go.
Man, this is hard. Kenya, move it! Hop in!
It's okay. I have to get the paddle first.
The 5-meter-long dugout weighs 200 kilograms, far more than all three girls together. To get it in motion is a tour de force. Only 3/4 of an hour before classes begin. High time to get going. The first part of their river voyage takes them through a dense mangrove swamp, a seemingly endless maze of roots and branches. There is no nearby shore to swim to should their canoe capsize, and 5-year-old Yulissa cannot swim. Although they have just set off, water is already swamping the boat. At a widening of the channel, the sisters must turn the cumbersome dugout. Kenya, the oldest, now sits in the back. From there, she can steer the canoe while keeping an eye on her 2 younger sisters. The 3 girls are careful not to touch any drooping plants. For them, too, venomous animals are a constant danger. Snakes or spiders could always fall from the branches and into their boat. But 7-year-old Julia is more concerned about the flow of brown river water into the canoe.
I'm often afraid that we might drown.
Little Yulissa also has to help. Her job, if too much water enters the canoe, is to bail it out along the way. Only as a trio is the trip in the rickety dugout even possible for the sisters. If one of the girls is sick, all 3 must stay at home, and school is canceled for that day.
It's not getting any less.
After about 20 minutes in the shadows, they reach the end of the mangroves. The children steer their canoe into the main branch of the Rio Escondido. The girls have completed almost half of their way to school. But now, they have the river's current to contend with. "7 o'clock. 30 minutes until the first lesson. Graven has almost made it out of the thicket. Slowly, the forest thins. The 11-year-old is in 4th grade. He has come a long way. Children in the rural areas of Nicaragua go to school for a maximum of 4 years, if they ever go to school at all. Graven has completed 2/3 of his dangerous journey to school.
Finally out of there, and I haven't seen any snakes yet.
But Graven can only take a short breather. Before him lies that part of his daily route he fears most, the snake field. He has encountered dangerous reptiles here on many occasions.
The snakes live under the coconut.
This is where just days ago, a boa constrictor, almost 3 meters long, crossed his path.
It was right here when I saw it, and it was that thick.
But there is no avoiding it. In less than half an hour, classes start. If Graven wants to get to school at all, he must cross the snake field. A few kilometers away, Graven's mother is cooking with her relatives. Coconut oil, the livelihood of the family. 25-year-old Jamie Lopez is, as always, worried about her firstborn on his way to school.
I don't really want him to go to school because we do not have a boat. I'm afraid that a snake will bite him while he is out there all alone. He's still so small, and the route overland is much longer than by water.
Although crossing the river is the shortest way to school, it is not by any means less dangerous. But the river is kind to the girls today. The 3 Flores sisters are making good progress with the current. Only 1 mile left. After 3/4 of an hour on the water, the main branch of the Rio Escondido is almost behind them. And luckily, the girls have not yet encountered any of the dangerous river dwellers.
What scares me the most are the alligators that live here. They want to eat me.
But now that their way to school is almost behind them, anticipation slowly gains the upper hand. Each sister is excited for a different reason.
I like to go to school because I can see my friends there.
Our teacher, Mrs. Miller, is very nice and pays attention to me. I'm looking forward to school because it's fun to learn.
The children's destination sits on a hill above the river in the village of San Mariano. Around 100 people live here. Almost all of them belong to one large family. School supplies for 1 year cost approximately $41, too much for most families. Only about a dozen children attend the school. All the students, except for Kenya, Julia, Yulissa, and Graven, live in the village. Their teacher, Mrs. Miller, knows the difficulties of the 4 jungle students well.
One day they come to class, and the next day they do not. But I know that they always try, so I'm satisfied. At least they learn something. The fact that the girls arrive with wet books, notebooks, and clothes here is normal. The boy, however, goes through the countryside where there are many snakes, some poisonous.
The coral snake is one of the most poisonous snakes of all, a red and black striped snake, which is very common in East Nicaragua. Graven hopes to get to school today without meeting one of them. It's very common for the reptiles to come out after the rain. The coconuts in which the snakes live fill up with water.
Then they come out and crawl around everywhere. On the path, in the coconut clusters. They hang from the tree trunks as well. They wind themselves up to the top and stay wrapped around the trunk.
So Graven always looks at the sky anxiously. He doesn't want to stay longer than necessary. The weather appears to have worsened. The same applies to his classmates on the water. It's almost 7:30. Gradually, their early start, the morning chores, and the strenuous paddling are taking their toll. The girls are tired, but their goal is in sight. Now, they only have one small lake to cross. But in the middle of the lake, as so often before, they get caught in one of the daily downpours. Additional water from above now mingles with the water entering their canoe from below. Because the region is so close to the equator, the daily rain showers can be very intense. Rainfall of 6,000 liters per square meter per year is standard. At home, 3 kilometers away, the girl's mother, Doña Julia, is on her way to work in the fields. She wants to plant new banana plants. Every day at work, the 35-year-old woman often thinks about her 3 young daughters. Doña Julia doesn't know where on their dangerous journey to school the kids now are, or how they're doing. This constant uncertainty is her biggest problem.
Sometimes they come home very late, and I always am afraid then that something has happened to them on the river. If they are traveling by boat, I'm always afraid that Yulissa will fall into the water. She cannot swim yet. On the river, something could easily happen to the little one.
Even though she worries daily about her daughters, she knows how important school is for the girls. Doña Julia herself can neither read nor write. Back to the girls. The weather has thankfully improved. After rowing 3 kilometers for over an hour, they finally reached the shore of San Mariano. Mooring the massive dugout requires the 2 older girls to muster all their strength. Julia and Kenya must pull the canoe as far as they can up the muddy bank, so if the water rises during class, it won't drift away.
Go on, you almost have it.
The 3 girls share a school bag. Carrying it is a privilege reserved for the eldest.
But just look at your pants.
Ulissa, Julia, and Kenya are indeed dirty, but have arrived safely, despite all the perils. Their classmate, Graven, has also made it to San Mariano unscathed. Classes begin officially at 7:30, but without a clock, the 4 children simply leave home when they're ready. Often they arrive late for school. Sometimes they're too early.
Hi, Graven.
On most days, Mrs. Miller waits to start class until the children from the jungle have made it to school. Today they start a good quarter of an hour late, and as usual with the Lord's Prayer. Nicaragua is strictly Catholic.
Padre nuestro que estás en los cielos, santificado sea tu nombre, así también perdonamos a los que nos ofenden. Perdona nuestras ofensas, así también perdonamos a los que líbranos del mal, porque tú eres el Dios. Amén. Si vas a la escuela, tienes que aprender, y si no aprendes, nada vas a hacer. Tienes que aprender, y si no aprendes, nada vas a hacer.
In the class, there are students between 4 to 14 years of age. It's a challenge offering everyone the appropriate learning material for his or her level. But the teacher has a system.
Let's get started. First grade, board. First grade, board. Second grade, prevention. Prevention. Third, fourth, and fifth grade, to serve. Serve.
Servir. Caligrafía. Caligrafía.
Despite the grueling journey to school, the older ones work hard to follow the lessons. For little Ulissa, suddenly having to sit still is very difficult.
When
When they arrive at school, because of the fatigue, they cannot focus well. This gradually gets better and better because they like to learn. But I must constantly remind them to concentrate on the board so they can retain the lesson.
With her simple reading lessons, the teacher of the small village school is fighting against a great national problem: a quarter of the adults in Nicaragua cannot read. The country has one of the highest illiteracy rates in Latin America. Then, it's time for what probably all school children in the world love the most: recess. The children get their lunch in a small hut in the village. Since their meager breakfast, the students have had nothing to eat or drink. They can't wait for the hot meal. Every day, a different mother from the village prepares the meal. There is almost always gallo pinto, fried rice with black beans, tortillas, and lemonade. A feast for the children.
Are you hungry? Can you take this from me?
But I want to carry the tortillas.
The government pays for the ingredients for lunch. The Zero Hunger program ensures that all school children in the country get to eat at least one meal a day. Although Nicaragua is considered a developing country, malnutrition has almost ceased to be a problem. The few hours at school are a welcome change from the poor life in the forest. Here the children have time to play, and just for once, everything revolves around them. After the break, math is on the program. 6 mangoes minus 2 mangoes make 4 mangoes. The students are enthusiastic, and everyone wants to come up to the board. Meanwhile, it's 1 o'clock. After 5 hours, classes are over for the day.
Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Right.
See you tomorrow.
The end of the school day is always a sad moment for Kenya.
In school, I have many friends, but when I'm back at home, they are far away. That makes me sad.
The Flores sisters are on their way back to their dugout. The best part of the day is over for them, because the way home not only takes longer, it will also take a lot of energy. But before they get back on the river, the girls have to bail the dugout, for it is filled up again during class. Graven's way home is also somewhat delayed. Since he is the only family member who comes here regularly, he must take care of his mother's shopping in the village store of San Mariano. The small shop is the only one within 20 kilometers.
Good afternoon.
Good day. What do you want?
White detergent, please.
Most of what they need to live, the locals produce themselves. In the village shop, there are important things like medicines, toiletries, and a few luxury items such as flashlights, batteries, or candy.
What else?
A liter of oil.
You're lucky I still have some. That's 170.
170 Cordoba oro, or about $6. A lot of money for the boy's family. A normal worker makes about $1.60 a day. Now Graven can head back home. He must go to his grandmother's house, where his mother awaits him with the rest of the family. This is the time of day when the afternoon heat sets in. As workers now flee from the sun to seek shelter in the village, the student must begin his hour-and-a-half-long walk. Graven would also like to hide from the sun.
I'm really hot, but I have to go to my grandmother's house.
Now the student must be even more cautious of snakes. In the afternoon heat, the cold-blooded reptiles become more active. The girls on the Rio Escondido have to deal with new dangers and difficulties. The way home takes them upriver. Now in their 200-kilogram dugout, the sisters must paddle against the current. Added to that, the weather seems to be conspiring against them.
It's very windy today, and therefore the current is very strong. The boat seems to be going nowhere.
While the oldest sister is really doing her best, Julia takes more and more breaks. Kenya is getting mad.
Hey, row a little bit faster now.
They have made it just halfway, and the trials of the day have already sapped their strength. On land, their classmate Graven struggles with temperatures over 35 degrees Celsius and extremely high humidity. A typical afternoon in eastern Nicaragua, where it is hot all year round, with an average humidity of 80%. Like the girls, he has only made it halfway home. Graven must hurry. Work awaits him at his destination. As soon as he arrives, he must help his family cook the coconut oil. But Graven is thirsty and needs a break. Clean drinking water is a rarity outside of the big towns. About 30% of people in the rural areas of Nicaragua have no access to clean water. Luckily, Graven does. He's not alone under the tree's shade for long. A late arriving worker also seeks shelter from the sun. It's Don Pedro, who Graven knows from the village.
Have you seen a snake?
Sure, I've seen one.
Although Graven has luckily never been bitten, his fear of poisonous snakes runs deep. Since no one here possesses any antidote, and the nearest doctor is 2 hours away by boat, a snake bite could be fatal. He quickly continues on his way. A few kilometers away, Kenya, Yulissa, and Julia have finally made it to the mangroves after paddling for over an hour. Despite the fatigue and exertion, Kenya takes good care of her little sisters. She keeps an especially sharp eye on Yulissa, who can't swim.
Take your foot out.
Because of the strong current on the main channel of the river, they are late. Their mother will already be concerned. The girls gather their last strength once again. All three help to get the heavy canoe through the final meters home. Then it is finally in sight. The familiar jetty. Other children who do not go to school are playing in the water. Unlike the Flores sisters, they have already done their household chores and so have time to play. But the three students are much too tired to join in the fun. It's after 3 o'clock when the girls moor the dugout to the dock. For more than 10 hours now, they have been hard at work. Yulissa, Julia, and Kenya just want to go home to their mother. The children were lucky they weren't caught in a downpour. During the rainy season, especially in the afternoons, showers are always to be expected. One kilometer further inland, their classmate Graven drags himself along the last leg of his journey home. The oppressive, humid afternoon heat and the fatigues of the day have been hard on the boy. The last few meters. Finally, for today, the end is in sight. Graven knows it's just this one hill, and then it's done.
Almost there.
At his grandmother's house, Graven's mother and the rest of the family are waiting for him.
Hello, how was school?
Good.
Did you see any snakes?
No.
Then go and change so that you can help us with the coconuts.
They earn their livelihood with coconut oil, which the entire family cooks together. They get $7.50 for each 5-liter canister of oil, but that means 3 hours' work for all 5 of them. For today, Graven has survived his dangerous journey to and from school and can now be with his family, so the work doesn't bother him. As for the girls, their small village of San Nicolas is finally within reach. so close to home, little Yuli is elated. Her big sisters, too, can hardly wait to see their mother. Yulissa, Julia, and Kenya are home at last. Once again, the children have overcome their journey to school. Their mother, Doña Julia, is already preparing dinner in the kitchen. Tonight, there will be smoked meat. The girls must strengthen themselves after all that physical exertion. Each of the sisters wants to be the first to hug their mother. The relief is obvious for the whole family. A dangerous and long day now lies behind the children. But 9-year-old Kenya knows exactly why she puts herself through it every day.
When I grow up, I want to study and become a teacher.
Today, she has come one step closer to her dream. Evening falls swiftly over the family's hut. So close to the equator, the sun sets shortly after 5 o'clock in the afternoon. At twilight, the exhausted girls crawl into bed. Now it's time for the 3 sisters to rest. Tomorrow is a new day, one that will bring them new adventures and take lots of energy. On the Rio Escondido, in eastern Nicaragua, on one of the world's most dangerous ways to school. The Sierra Madre Occidental in northwestern Mexico. Here, scattered in the mountains and far away from civilization, live the Raramuri. The way to school for the children of the Sierras is a dizzying hour-long march. Their goal? The boarding school in Huisuchi. It is one of the most dangerous and longest routes to school in the world. For their dream, the children overcome a more than 1,000-meter change in altitude and often trek until they are on the verge of exhaustion. But their hunger for education is stronger than the fear of tumbling down the narrow, steep slopes. The children know that school gives hope and is their gateway to a better life. Monday, 5:30 in the morning, in the village of Ripuchinari, a plateau in the midst of the vast Sierras. It's freezing cold here, 2,300 meters above sea level, where at night it often falls well below 5 degrees Celsius. Like every day, the 6-year-old Teresa first makes a fire. This is the only way for her 8-year-old sister Angela, her mother, and the 9-year-old Filomena to warm up. Like most Raramuri, the family lives from its corn crops and their livestock. The parents' cows and goats spend the winter in the warm valley below. Only the chickens are kept on top of the plateau year-round.
I feed the 10 chickens every day. And then I'm happy to go to school.
The class starts at 9 o'clock in Huisuchi. The girls are always especially well dressed for school, in their traditional outfits of self-made flowing skirts and brightly colored blouses. On their feet, they wear thin sandals called huarachis, their only protection against the cold ground in winter.
Barefoot, it's really cold. With the huarachis, it's better.
A quick comb through their hair, and out. School begins in 3 hours.
Take good care of yourselves.
Bye-bye.
The Raramuri speak their own language with the same name, Raramuri. This makes it impossible for them to find work in the city. The 25-year-old Aniseta sends her daughters to school so that they can learn Spanish, even if getting there is very dangerous.
My thoughts are often with my children when they are on that difficult path. They could get hurt, and I imagine them sitting somewhere crying. I miss my children during the week. I could really use their help with the housework.
That is why not all the Raramuri children go to school. Without their help, many families in the Sierras simply could not survive. Like most children from this area, Teresa, Filomena, and Angela stay in the boarding school during the week. The route through the Sierras is too strenuous and dangerous to do every day. While the girls have long been on their way, 1,000 meters below in the valley, the day now slowly begins. Hidden in the middle of the Sierras lies Chapatari, a small village with 30 inhabitants. None of the simple huts made from stone and mud have electricity or running water. Shortly after 6 o'clock, Lorenzo wakes up. His mother died giving birth to his little brother. Since then, his uncle and grandmother have taken care of the 6-year-old. Lorenzo is not happy. He doesn't like the way to school. For breakfast, there's fresh spinach and homemade corn tortillas, a rare feast. The family just barely survives on whatever their garden will produce. Crop failure has caused the family to go hungry more and more recently, and there's just no money to buy food.
I like going to school. There's always something to eat.
That's why many parents send their children to boarding school. 3 times a day, the students are fed, and it's free. The Mexican government pays for boarding school. It's 6:30, and Lorenzo now has a 2-hour walk through the Sierras ahead of him. 2 long hours, where the 6-year-old will have to navigate through paths of loose stones, leading over steep slopes. Lorenzo's uncle would prefer to accompany the boy on the dangerous path.
The entire route is difficult. There are many rocky and steep places. Of course I want to go with him, but I have so much work in the field that I have to stay here.
Lorenzo won't come back until the end of the week. During that time, he sleeps at school. After half an hour, Teresa, Filomena, and Angela have reached the edge of the high plateau, the easiest part of the path. In the red bundle, Filomena carries fresh clothes for the week.
We live so far away from the school that we leave our books there. They are much too heavy to carry back and forth. That would be too difficult.
The three girls don't have much time to learn at home anyway. They need to help with the housework when they are there. If need be, they even miss several days of school. The girls' destination? The elementary school of Huisuchi, the only one within 6 hours. As the crow flies, there are only 1.5 kilometers separating the girls' home from the school, a seemingly short journey of a few minutes. But only seemingly.
We must walk down the slope here, then through the forest and up the other side again to the school.
Angela, Filomena, and Teresa must climb all the way up this ledge, a single cliff of 300 meters. But first, they must navigate the way down. Classes will begin in 2.5 hours. It is a trek over the harshest of terrains just to get to school in Huisuchi. It's just before 7 o'clock, and Director Genoveva Cruz Cruz is preparing her lessons. She teaches the 1st and 2nd grades. The 6- and 7-year-old children all sit in the same room. Genoveva lives in the neighboring town. It takes her 6 hours by car to get to Huisuchi, as long as it's not raining or snowing. That's why she sleeps here from Monday to Friday, as do many of her students.
The routes that some children take to get here are very long, and at times really very dangerous. All sorts of accidents could happen. They could fall, for example, or be attacked by an animal. A lot could happen to them on their way here.
In Mexico, education is compulsory, even in the far reaches of the Sierras. No one really knows just how many children in the mountains work with their parents instead of going to school. An estimated 40% of the indigenous people in Mexico are illiterate. Among the Raramuri, the rate is even higher. For Mexico's indigenous people, such as Lorenzo, education is free, from primary school all the way to university. But only few children make it to university. They are needed at home to work. Lorenzo has been on the road for just about half an hour. And for the 6-year-old, there is only one direction: up. To get to school, he has to climb 1,000 meters. Each step is carefully considered. One slip and Lorenzo could sprain or break his ankle. Except for some grazed knees and shins, nothing bad has happened to him yet. The Raramuri live scattered across the Sierras. Lorenzo only rarely sees people in the area. On average, less than 2 people per square kilometer live here. It is one of the most sparsely populated places in the world. If something were to happen to him here, it would take days for someone to find him in this deserted place. Teresa, Filomena, and Angela have been on the road for a little less than an hour. They have made such good progress, they can even take a short break. The girls have a treat in sight, an Apache pine tree, one of only a few to be found on the steep slope. The three have plans for the seeds. They are perfect for the small snack in between, but getting them is not that easy. Chew and spit. The girls just want the juice from the seeds. One of nature's candies. They taste like pine nuts, only slightly more bitter.
The long trip to school makes us hungry. That's why we eat the seeds. The juice in the seeds tastes really good.
The students can use a little refreshment. The first dangerous obstacle of the descent lies ahead. The last part is easy going for the students. But to get to the valley, the three must first descend an extremely steep slope. It's exactly this spot that their mother begs them to be careful about each time they depart. Lorenzo has been on the road for less than an hour, and the temperature is soaring. The climate in the Sierras is similar to that of the desert. At night, it can easily cool down to freezing, while during the day, the thermometer can rise to 25 degrees Celsius or more. Put the jacket away quickly and keep going. Under no circumstance does Lorenzo want to be late for school. He's happy that he can soon play with his friends.
Down there, the way is easy. I have no problems there. But from here on, it gets steeper. And above, there's a really difficult spot.
The difficult spot is this ridge. Extremely steep, full of boulders, and not more than half a meter wide at the narrowest parts. Step by step, Lorenzo works his way from the valley up to school, constantly checking his footing. No risks taken here. The last few meters, and then Angela, Filomena, and Teresa must face their first challenge. This bluff. They're beginning to feel the strain of the day's early start and the long road. Teresa, the smallest of the three, falls behind. Just over the ledge lies the real difficult part. Their mother once broke her arm here. The morning dew makes the rocks slippery, and it's shady here the entire day.
This is a dangerous place. Or as our mother always says, we need to be especially careful here.
The sisters don't take their mother's warning seriously. Instead of going carefully step by step down, the girls prefer to jump down the stairs. For them, the Sierras is more like a large playground than a dangerous place.
The hard part is behind us. It gets easier now for a while.
While the girls have fun, Lorenzo has been going uphill for an hour now. His feet and legs are tired, and he still has dangerous passages before him. This is a very draining hike for Lorenzo. But if you know where to look, even in the barren Sierras, you can find something to eat. Lorenzo plucks the leaves of a creosote bush. His people believe that it possesses healing powers.
I eat the leaves because I'm hungry. I pick out the soft leaves. They taste good.
Lorenzo eats as much as he can. The leaves need to give him enough strength for the rest of the way to school. Even if he might be late for school, the 6-year-old takes a break. His feet need to rest.
There I have a blister from walking, and it really hurts. My shoe rubs there constantly, and here it also hurts. Here in front by the big toe, because my toes always hit the front of the shoe.
Lorenzo must continue with his sore toe. There is no doctor for miles around in any direction, nor disinfectant or blisters bandage. Filomena, Angela, and Teresa's school begins in an hour and a half. It's not unusual at all that girls go to school. The Raramuri have always held men and women to be equal. Despite playing around, the sisters are making good time. But Teresa has fallen behind again. Her sandal is broken. The huarachis are simple sandals made from old tire rubber and leather straps. They can be repaired easily.
These are my old shoes. They break often. I need new ones.
New sandals cost 200 pesos, 2 days' wages, approximately $13. When the harvest is over, most men have to leave their families and work as day laborers to earn some extra cash. The money they make goes for staple items such as food like flour and corn. New shoes are usually at the bottom of the list. Around 100,000 Raramuri inhabit the Sierras. They are the largest and poorest indigenous group in Mexico. The majority live below the poverty line of $1.25 a day. As is the case with Teresa, Angela, and Filomena's parents, their livestock and crops are not enough to survive. Other family members, like the grandfather of the 3 girls, must also be fed. To make money, the mother weaves baskets. The 25-year-old sells them in the neighboring villages or exchanges them for food. It's not unusual that such a young woman already has 3 children. According to Raramuri tradition, you reach adulthood at 15 and may then drink alcohol and get married. Accompanied by her father, Aniseta looks for new materials for the baskets. This hours. Although of advanced years, he has no problem keeping up. All Raramuri are good runners.
As a child, I walked barefoot, without the huaraches. Then we began making them from cow leather, and now from old car tires. I used to do running races here in the Sierras, and won twice. I still travel a lot these days when I do the shopping, down into the valley and back up the mountain.
Raramuri means those who run well. This indigenous group is famous for their long-distance runners. They can run hundreds of miles at a time without a problem. With their villages scattered all over the mountains, the Raramuri are forced to be constantly on foot. Their settlement of this rough terrain was due to the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors 500 years ago. Only in the seclusion of the Sierras could they live almost undisturbed until today. For the baskets, Aniseta needs the leaves of the sotole. The tree grows almost exclusively on rocky overhangs, which makes cutting the blades extremely dangerous.
This spot is very difficult and dangerous. Take good care of yourself. You better not slip off, or you will go crashing down.
What else can I do? I need to make the money.
In order to make the basket beautiful, she needs the bright green leaves all the way at the top. For each basket, Aniseta makes the equivalent of $3. A bit further in a small valley, Lorenzo reaches his biggest challenge. The narrow path leads Lorenzo directly along the face of the cliff. Anyone from his village who wants to go to Huisuchi must pass along here. There is no other way. In some places, the rock path is about 2 meters wide, but in others, it is only 50 centimeters. One last deep breath before he takes on the most dangerous challenge of the day. Lorenzo doesn't like this part of the trip at all.
If I fall here, I will fall very far down. I'm quite scared. That's why I go very slowly. I'll be happy when I'm in the boarding school above. Then I won't have to pass here for another few days.
The abyss under Lorenzo is 300 meters deep. Every step, every move must now be right. The rocks here in the Sierra Madre Occidental are a mixture of limestone and volcanic deposits, an extremely porous and brittle combination. At any time, one of the stones could break away under Lorenzo's feet. Without a safety rope, Lorenzo climbs up the steep, narrow point. Luckily, until now, no child has ever fallen from the wall. Lorenzo has been on his way now for 1.5 hours. His legs are getting heavier and heavier as the road gets steeper and steeper. But the 6-year-old must remain vigilant. Many people have been injured on their way here before. This one last ledge, and then Lorenzo can leave the cliff behind him.
I'm glad now that I made it up here. But further up there is again another difficult part.
The way over the ledge has taken a lot of strength, but he can't take a break now. Lorenzo still needs another hour to get to school, which lies all the way up, just behind this mountain peak. Shortly before 8 o'clock, the girls have managed more than half of the way. Now comes the best part, the break in the river. It's almost dry at the moment.
If it rains a lot, the river gets so high that we cannot cross it. Then we have to go back home.
When the water level is high, the students could fall into the raging river, and none of the girls can swim. Today the students are they make it across the river without any rain. The weather can change in the Sierras from one moment to the next. Dry season, it almost never rains. But when the rain comes, it comes with a vengeance. At times, it can pour the entire day. Lorenzo can't continue when it's raining. The rocks are then too slippery and muddy to get up safely. He must wait in a cave for the weather to get better. Rain is not the only danger in the mountains. Wild animals, such as cougars and coyotes, are also lurking in the Sierras.
Here on the road, I once I was really afraid it would bite me.
Today, Lorenzo won't be able to make it to school by 9 o'clock anymore. The valley where the girls are has been spared from the rain, but the road is hard enough without a downpour. A 100-meter-high rock wall still separates them from school. Should it rain, it would be all that more difficult for Filomena and Teresa to reach that height. The rocks too steep, too smooth. It will take the girls about half an hour to get up there. They have to watch out what they come to. The bushes can hide poisonous snakes. They've made it. It's just after 8:30, and the girls are in Husuchi with 170 inhabitants, the largest village within a 6-hour walk, and the only village. Pauses, the girls arrive just before classes begin at 9 o'clock. Around 100 children attend the school, all Raramuris. The students from the village and those with an easy way to school are often there an hour before classes. They use the time to play. The rain has stopped, and Lorenzo begins again to make his way through the mountains. Every step he takes his destination, the school gets closer. He has 700 meters below him, 300 meters still to go. Weather permitting, the 6-year-old will make it to school in half an hour. But he has one big final test before him.
I always have to go up this steep incline to get to school. Very steep and difficult part of the way. Even if it rains, I have to go up here. There's no way to the top. So this is the only way for me to get to school.
Lorenzo is not the only student who must travel along this passage. Sometimes he meets other children here, but to face it alone. The sun up the way quickly. Now Lorenzo will no longer slip as easily. Nevertheless, he has to be careful that he doesn't get his feet caught somewhere, lose his balance, or fall. He's made it. Lorenzo's feet are hurting again, but he takes the pain in stride.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher, maybe. Or I could have lots of animals. Cows, donkeys, and chickens. I would like that.
Just one more ledge, and Lorenzo is in Huisuchi, 1,000 meters higher than when he started. Today it took him just short of 4 hours, almost twice as long as usual. But more importantly, Lorenzo has made it unscathed through the Sierras. While Lorenzo last meters alone towards the school, classes begin. Maria Sanchez, school director, rings the bell to begin classes. On Mondays, school always starts at 9 o'clock instead of 8. Many children have a long way to school and often come late. Filomena is in the 2nd grade, which shares a classroom with the 1st graders as well. First subject of the day is Spanish.
Please take your books out. If there are no questions, we'll begin now to read the novel.
The children need to read a text and then answer questions from the board. It's Filomena's turn. Her question, where do we find literary texts? A classmate helps Filomena and spells the solution. The student scribbles the word novela on the board. A novel. There are a few meters left for Lorenzo to reach the school, and they are very easy.
I'll be glad when I have the way here behind me. I'm looking forward to school and my friends there.
The schoolyard. Lorenzo has reached his destination. It's just after 10 o'clock. Lorenzo has only missed the first hour. The classroom door is locked, although always open. Has the teacher locked the door? Finally, he has cleared the last hurdle. Since it was cold and windy outside, Senora Genoveva had locked the door. She simply ignores Lorenzo's late arrival and continues with the lesson. Social studies is now on the lesson plan. How Huisuchi used to be, and how the village has changed today. Lorenzo puts great effort into copying what is written on the board. It seems to come easier to the other children.
Already there are huge differences in their learning levels. The children who are always here make good progress. Among those who are only sometimes here, you notice that there is no one at home pushing them. There the learning stops. The children from in town simply learn much faster than the children who come from far away.
4 teachers work here in the first 6 grades of the primary school, La Primaria. This is followed by 3 years middle school, La Secundaria. And those who want to go to college must first finish 3 years of high school, La Preparatoria. 12 o'clock, lunchtime. During the week, students get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The food is free for all children. It's an attempt to combat hunger and malnutrition, which is a major problem here in the mountains. Today, there's a sauce made from canned sardines with potatoes and peas and tortillas. The pita bread is the staple food in the Sierras.
Fish with potatoes tastes good.
The lunch break is 2 hours long. Classes then resume at 2 o'clock. Teresa now has art, where the children can paint what they want. Teresa likes drawing bears the most. Lorenzo has something like tutoring in the afternoon. The students do their homework under the supervision of a teacher. 4 o'clock, school's out. The girls have something special to do today. They're going to the corn beer festival in the village. They will be serving goat meat, a feast that the girls get only very rarely. Everyone who comes will get something to eat and drink. Sharing is a Raramuri tradition. The Corn Beer Festival is a mix of ancient rites and the Catholic faith. The Raramuri celebrated only on special occasions, such as birthdays or weddings. Today, they pray for rain. The colorful costumes and dance are meant to please the gods because water is scarce. The average rainfall is only about 400 liters per square meter annually. And indeed, after 10 minutes, it starts to rain and becomes bitterly cold. The hot soup with goat meat is exactly what is needed here. In this cold, wet weather, the girls would normally prefer to return to boarding school, but the prospect of getting a bowl of meat soup, tonari, is just too tempting. The students are among the first that manage to get something to eat at the feast. The children find refuge by a wooden shed. It offers little protection from the cold, rainy weather, but at the moment, that's not important.
The meat is very good, but it's just too cold.
The ceremony is over at sunset, and the girls are not allowed out later anyway. Lights go out at 8 p.m. They must all be back at boarding school by then. Around 40 children sleep at the boarding school.
No one gets to leave anymore. All children inside. Everybody in his or her own quarters. Let's go. Quick. Come on.
Sleeping quarters are a simple welded metal hut. It's a temporary solution until the new dormitory is completed. Until then, the girls sleep on 6 bunk beds, often 3 to a bed, just like Teresa, Angela, and Filomena.
Lie down. Soon the lights will go out. Let's go. Lie down now.
At night, it can get down to 0 degrees Celsius without any heating. Then, the thin blankets alone are not enough to keep warm. So all the kids go to bed fully dressed.
Good night.
After the girls, it's bedtime for the boys. Like the girls, several children share a mattress. Even Lorenzo sleeps with 2 friends in a bed.
Are all the boys here? All here?
Lorenzo is the first to fall asleep. The long and dangerous walk to school through the Sierras and the lessons were just too exhausting today. Now, like all children in the boarding school, he dreams of a future with no worries or poverty.